Let's look at 12:14, the last verse we're going to look at tonight. And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness and into her place, where she is nourished for a time and times and half a time from the face of the serpent. 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness. She's not like, oh, I have to go to the wilderness. She's flying to the wilderness, folks. Just pay attention here. It didn't say persecuted and unfortunately with much pain and suffering, she has to leave and go to the wilderness. That's not what it says here. She flew with 2 wings of a great eagle into the wilderness. What are the wings here? Divine protection. Great wings, great divine protection. So the Lord is telling us here that there will be great divine protection for the church when it goes into exile, into the wilderness, when it's persecuted. It will have great protection to flee from the face of this dragon, serpent, devil, Satan that's pursuing. What this imagery of eagle with wings, we actually see this in Exodus 19:4, where God protects the old Israel in the desert of Sinai. We read, "You have seen what I did to the Egyptians and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself." So this is the protection already in old Israel, using the phrase. So God leads the church there. God leads the church there. And it's like happenstance. He leads the church there. Just as he did the Hebrews when they departed from Egypt into the desert to worship him without fear. So we have that as well in the Old Testament. He led them out of Egypt, civilization, into the desert, into the stark reality of, and yet fearless reality, but stark reality of the desert, to worship him, undistracted. The desert or the wilderness is the native or true place of the church. It's not a foreign place. It's not a place that, we have to be in the desert. This is where we should be. This is where the church is at home, in the desert. The desert is her permanent place, since persecution is an endless fact. That's a great line. I'm going to repeat that. Write that down. Put it up on your refrigerator. Keep it in front of you as the days go ahead, as the church is persecuted more and more. When, how soon, we don't know, but this is the lot. Because as we said here, the desert is her permanent place, since persecution is an endless fact. How far is this from the secularized, worldly, so-called Christianity of almost all public forms of Christianity today, including those some of them who call themselves Orthodox, and yet are pushing the ratification or reconciliation of the church with gross sodomy and Sodom-like sins, and the gross, decrepit society which is embracing the flesh, the pleasures of the flesh. How far is this desert, persecuted existence from that which embraces the spirit of the world, justifies sins, reconciles itself with the world, identifies with the worldly, desires the approbation and approval of the worldly, desires to be among the leaders and the rulers of this world, far, far from the Spirit of Christ. Right? God have mercy for all those who would follow after such distortions of the gospel. So Revelation 12:14, the desert, our place, our true place, our permanent home. And the elder wants us to remember, he comes back to this often, as it's so important for the last Christians, for the 8th millennium Christians that we are. He says, the utopia of a social and political Christianity. Remember this. We must emphasize this. There is a utopia being embraced, pushed, ratified by a social, in other words, purely social, horizontal level Christianity, politicized Christianity, ideological Christianity, so-called Christianity, right? This Christianity is serving the utopia that is being prepared by the transhumanists and all the antichrists. The church seeks refuge in the desert. The church seeks refuge in the desert. In the final days, the desert will literally become her home. The wilderness, the desert, it's not literally the sand of the desert. We're talking about the desert places, the deserted places, the places far from the centers of Antichrist, the church that's in the wilderness, whatever that might be on the face of the earth. The church will flee to the desert, which is precisely what the Word of God says here in Revelation. The church will flee to the desert because it is totally impossible to reconcile the church with a utopia-leaning, looking, preaching, social, political, ideological, worldly Christianity, so-called.